America remembers Abraham Lincoln as a martyr, but after his murder, his widow became something darker: a public embarrassment, a grieving mother, and finally, a woman declared legally insane in a courtroom arranged by her own son. What if the most revered president in American history left behind a widow that the nation simply wanted to erase? This is the shocking, untold story of Mary Todd Lincoln. Was she destroyed by madness, or was she a victim of a ruthless family and a society that refused to let her grieve? Fact number 1. The woman America loved to hate. Even before the assassination, Mary was a public relations nightmare. Born into a wealthy slave-owning family in the South, she was viewed with deep suspicion during the Civil War. But her real crime in the eyes of the public was her explosive temper and an uncontrollable obsession with extreme luxury. Congress granted her a $20,000 budget to refurbish the White House. She blew through it in months, overspending on imported French wallpaper and velvet carpets while soldiers were freezing on the battlefield. When Abraham Lincoln found out, he was absolutely furious. From that moment on, the press branded her as a selfish, unstable liability, completely ignoring the intense political pressure she was under. Fact number 2. The terrifying medical rumor and 3 dead sons. To understand Mary's eventual mental collapse, you have to understand her unbearable grief. She was a mother who lived through every parent's absolute worst nightmare 3 separate times. She lost Edward to tuberculosis at age 3, Willie to typhoid fever at age 11, and Tad to a lung infection at age 18. Her supposed madness did not appear out of thin air, but there's an even darker, heavily debated historical rumor that explains this tragedy. Modern medical historians have theorized that Abraham Lincoln unknowingly contracted syphilis in his youth and passed it to Mary. Proponents of this theory argue it perfectly explains Mary's progressive neurological breakdown, her intense paranoia, and why 3 of their 4 sons died before reaching adulthood. Fact number 3. The night that broke her mind. The final devastating blow to her sanity occurred on the evening of April 14, 1865. Mary was sitting in the presidential box at Ford's Theater, leaning close to her husband, holding his hand. Suddenly, John Wilkes Booth fired a bullet into the back of Abraham Lincoln's head. Mary's screams echoed through the entire theater. She was sitting so close that she was physically covered in her husband's blood. Today, any medical professional would instantly diagnose her with severe, crippling post-traumatic stress disorder. But in the 19th century, she was just dismissed as a hysterical woman. Her life became a permanent state of mourning, and she refused to take off her black dress for the rest of her life. Fact number 4. The blackmail of Lord Colchester. Desperate to connect with her dead children, Mary's grief pushed her into the shadowy underworld of the occult. She began hosting secret seances in the Red Room of the White House. But she was not just grieving, she was being aggressively conned. A fraudulent medium calling himself Lord Colchester convinced the First Lady he was channeling Willie's ghost. When Mary began to trust him implicitly, Colchester demanded political favors and threatened to publicly expose her mental instability to the press if she did not comply. The blackmail only stopped when a family friend physically threatened the fraudster, exposing his illusions and forcing him to leave the desperate mother alone. Fact number 5. The shopping, the opiates, and the money panic. Left drowning in secret debt, Mary's fear of poverty turned into a paralyzing obsession. She secretly traveled to New York City under a fake name, attempting to sell her lavish wardrobe and diamonds just to survive. When the press found out, they viciously mocked her in what became known as the Old Clothes Scandal. By the 1870s, her money panic reached terrifying levels. She began carrying tens of thousands of dollars in government bonds physically sewn into the lining of her petticoats. Many historians believe these paranoid delusions were massively amplified by a severe, untreated addiction to laudanum, a liquid opiate freely prescribed by doctors at the time to manage her grief and migraines. Fact number 6. The 3-hour betrayal. Her erratic behavior finally pushed her only surviving son, Robert Todd Lincoln, to take drastic action. Robert was deeply embarrassed by her spending and terrified she would squander the Lincoln fortune. In May 1875, he did not stage a compassionate family intervention. Instead, he ambushed her. Robert orchestrated a ruthless insanity hearing. Mary was dragged into a Cook County courtroom with absolutely no warning. The trial lasted a mere 3 hours. Robert packed the room with witnesses who testified about her shopping habits, her strange fears, and her physical pains. A jury of 12 men, none of whom understood psychological trauma, took just 10 minutes to officially declare the widow of Abraham Lincoln a legal lunatic. Fact number 7. Bellevue Place and the Gilded Prison. Before she could be locked away, Mary attempted to take her own life, rushing to a Chicago pharmacy to buy lethal drugs. A quick-thinking pharmacist recognized her and gave her a harmless placebo instead. Defeated, she was sent to Bellevue Place, a private high-class sanitarium. It was not a dark dungeon with chains, but to Mary, it was a gilded prison. Her windows were barred and her doors were locked from the outside. But Mary was not insane. Surviving letters from her time at Bellevue proved that her mind was astonishingly sharp. She wrote to friends that her intellect was completely clear, begging them to help her achieve justice and escape her son's total control. Fact number 8. The feminist smuggler who rescued her. Robert thought his mother was safely silenced, but he drastically underestimated her political brilliance. Mary began smuggling secret letters out of the asylum, passing them to James and Myra Bradwell. Myra was a fierce pioneer fighting to become the first female lawyer in Illinois. The Bradwells teamed up with a powerful newspaper editor and launched a sensational media campaign in the Chicago Times. They began publishing daily articles exposing the conditions of her confinement and publicly accusing Robert Lincoln of imprisoning a perfectly sane woman just to steal her money. The explosive public outcry completely destroyed Robert's reputation, forcing him to release his mother into the custody of her sister in September 1875. Fact number 9. The court reversed itself. Mary was free, but she was not finished fighting. She wanted her name and her dignity completely restored. On June 15, 1876, Mary forced a second trial. This time, the court officially reversed its previous decision. The jury formally declared Mary Todd Lincoln restored to reason, legally returning her freedom and complete control over her massive property. It was a stunning, unprecedented victory for a woman in the 19th century. She immediately wrote a chilling, permanent letter to Robert, demanding the return of all her belongings and formally cutting her only son out of her life forever. Fact number 10. The widow history still puts on trial. Mary fled to Europe, living in self-imposed exile to escape the ruthless American press. When her health finally failed, she returned to Illinois, spending her final years blind and paralyzed in a darkened room. She was surrounded by 64 heavy shipping trunks packed with the luxury clothes she had obsessively bought and never worn. She died on July 16, 1882. More than a century later, history still puts Mary Todd Lincoln on trial. We judge her for her grief, her spending, and her hysteria, punishing her for trauma that the 19th century simply refused to forgive in women. So, who is the real villain of this story? Was Robert Lincoln a terrified son desperately trying to save a mother who had lost her mind? Or was he a cold-blooded traitor who locked away a traumatized widow to protect his own political image? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe as we continue to expose the darkest, most uncomfortable secrets behind history's greatest legends.